Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today's Monday, it's book club day, and we are finishing up chapter 9 in Loyalty to Your Soul. There's only 10 chapters, so we are coming up to the end of this book. It's been a great journey. This is all about spiritual psychology. So if you're just joining in and coming across this, you can totally jump in at any point in any of these book clubs. The discussions are kind of like each one off based on what was talked about in it. And last time we met, we were talking about self-forgiveness. That was the beginning of chapter 9. And so we are going to be finishing out that. And what was nice is that in this, it's the second time in this book that they've given us an exercise we can do. So what I would say is if you have something or someone that has triggered you recently, a situation that you're like, this isn't working, I don't like this, and you're having difficulty, maybe a loved one said something, or a loved one always said something, or your parents acted a certain way, or your spouse acts a certain way, or your kids act a certain way, or your boss acts a certain way, whatever it is. There's going to be an exercise that I'm going to walk you through, and you're going to be able to do. So if you've got a pencil and a piece of paper, that'd be great when we get to that part. But let's talk about forgiveness, this concept of forgiveness. I don't think it's new to any of us, but maybe the way that spiritual psychology looks at forgiveness might be new to you, okay? It's a very different way. So forgiveness, they're essentially saying, while the intention to forgive is laudable, and actually the process of forgiving is being done from the ego's perspective, right? That's the actual process. It's your ego mind that is forgiving, which the ego is not real, remember? The ego is the thing that has preferences. The ego is the thing that pulls us from the loving presence that we are. And they go on to say, when this type of forgiveness is practiced, usually what the person has actually done is enter into a more subtle level of the right-wrong model. However, a judgment that what the other person did was wrong is still being held on to. You're still saying you shouldn't have done this. I don't like that you did this. You didn't actually let go of the right-wrong model. You just said, I know you did this thing that was wrong, but I forgive you even though you did the wrong thing. Still, do you see the subtle thing here? It's still ego mind. He says the ego is essentially saying, how you treated me was awful, but I'm big enough of a person that I can forgive you for it. So while this type of forgiveness is going to move in a healthy direction, yes, it will do little to dissolve the rocks in your backpack. You're still carrying that. You're still like, yeah, I'll forgive, but I won't forget, right? I'm still holding it in some way. This person wronged me. They might do it again. And he says it doesn't address the actual judgment that underlies the person's inner disturbance, which is something that's within you, which is what we're going to be talking about today. He says true forgiveness is accomplished by surrendering judgments and thus transcending the right-wrong levels of mind and emotion. I think about it like, it's like you finally realize that it's an illusion, that anything is right or wrong. Like everything is just happening. We just do this magic trick where we make it about ourselves. We say, oh yeah, this is something that should have happened. This is something I like. This is something I didn't like. And that magic trick, then creates an internal emotional response. All right. But the truth is life is just happening. It's not for you. It's not against you. It's just unfolding. We do the magic trick in our mind of, oh, I liked that. I want more of that. Or that was great. Let's do that again. Or I didn't like that. That the person should have never said that to me. And that we manipulate and say things so that they don't do that again. This is what the mind gets into. And the truth of the matter in spiritual psychology, what they're saying is, no. Realize that the whole polarity and the opinions and the likes and dislikes, that's something that is happening in the mind. Life is neutral. Life is just flowing by. We are having this internal response to it that's causing us to like or dislike, and it's creating all of the mental and emotional fatigue. It does stress you out, does it not? And so it's just an illusion, right? It's an illusion. There's nothing actually to forgive. It's realizing, oh, my mind is passing these judgments, and that's what's not helpful. That's what spiritual psychology gets into. So he says, because you don't know the spiritual purpose absolutely, isn't it obvious that you're making up these rules based mostly on nothing other than what your ego has come to believe is the way life should be? So remember that from the spiritual psychology perspective, they're saying you're here for a reason. Your soul has asked to learn certain lessons. So things are coming into your life, right? They call them the stackers. They're stacking experiences into your life that are causing you to have internal turmoil so that you wake up to the lesson you're supposed to learn. That's the context, right? But we, forgetting the context, forgetting what it is that we're supposed to be learning here in this lifetime, forgetting what lesson plan like we have, we look at these experiences and we say, I don't like that, I don't want that, blah, 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 blah. Rather than like, these are actually, like the trigger's the teacher. Like these moments are actually the teaching moments for us. If we would just stop for a minute and pay attention. But most of us don't. Most of us are so into what our mind says should or shouldn't be, could or could be different. You with me? Put a 5 in the chat if you're with me. Just like high five me. He says, so when you forgive anyone, including yourself, for doing things that you define as bad or wrong, you run the risk of subtly reinforcing the judgment you've initiated. So you're not getting anywhere, all right, with that model. It doesn't, forgiving sounds good. People tell us we should be forgiving people. It doesn't actually get you anywhere in this evolution we're talking about, okay? Sorry, I forgot to say hi to all of you that are here. So, hey Tina, hey Charlotte, hey Lou. Yes, all right, we got 5s coming in. Great, good. All right, so let's look at this. On page 176, he calls it soul-centered self-forgiveness. That's what this entire chapter really is about. And he starts out by saying the only thing you can truly forgive or let go of are the judgments that you've initiated against anything or anyone, including yourself. Again, the right-wrong model, it should be, it shouldn't be, could be different, ought to be different. Is that happening external or is it happening internal? Like this is a massive distinction. It's happening internally. It is in you. It is a lens you're wearing. It is your past. It is your ego that is saying, this is good, this is bad. This should be, this shouldn't be. Okay, so it's an internal judgment. That's what he calls judgments. Judging something as good or bad, like or dislike it. That's the internal judgment. Okay, this is like super key. I always think of the yin yang. It's stopping from seeing the full circle and it's going into either the black or the white part, right, of the yin yang. He says, it's your own judgments stemming from unresolved issues that result in emotional suffering. Because you are choosing, I like this, I don't like this. In the past, this went poorly for me, so I don't want to go through that again. It's a past emotional judgment that is causing you to see the current situation in this way, right? Oh, my past relationship treated me this way. I'm not going to go through this again, right? You're totally bringing the past into the present moment. You're putting judgments onto the present moment. You're putting preferences onto the present moment. This is a problem if you don't want to carry around a bunch of rocks in your backpack, right? If you don't want to have emotional suffering. He says, you are the one who experiences the pain of separation whenever you judge. This is important. You are the one going from unity, right? When you just see everything for as it is. The moment you start to see preference and you start to go, oh, I like this, I don't like this. You're moving from unity. You're seeing the polarity. And once you have preference, you create duality. I want this, I don't want this. This is good, this is bad. And now your experience of life is dependent on what's happening external. And the thing is, you can't control that. But you can control never breaking out of unity. You can control and say, okay, let me just look at this and not judge it as good or bad. And just say, why is this here in my life? What is this revealing to me? Very different perspective, because you are the one that is pulling away. This wholeness, this unity, this is the loving presence. This is God. This is what they talk about in spiritual psychology. And what they're saying is you are the one that is experiencing the pain of separation whenever you judge. You're the one moving into duality. You're the one choosing for or against. Not life, not the circumstances that are unfolding. You're the one saying, I don't like this, I don't want that, it ought to be different, it should be different, it could be different. That's a you thing, and this is huge. All the responsibility right here, your shoulders, okay? He says, if the essence of God is continual and ongoing love, it's not from God that you need to seek forgiveness, it is from yourself. Interesting. They're saying God, the loving presence, is always there in unity. It is your mind that separated and created duality and created all this suffering. So who do you need to seek forgiveness from? Not God. God's here, not judging, going, oh, I'm glad you're back when you come back, right? It's the mind. It's yourself. You need to forgive yourself for not realizing what you were doing, for not realizing that you were the one pulling yourself apart, that you were creating your own misery. I think it's a really interesting perspective. Ask yourself for forgiveness as you are the one creating the suffering. You're not hurting God. You don't need to ask God for forgiveness, right? You're only hurting you. You are hurting you when you have preference. You are hurting you when you have expectations that are not met. Judgments being cast, good, bad, like, don't like. All you're doing is hurting you. All you're doing is creating emotional turmoil inside of you. All right? So why do we do this to ourselves? I think that is probably the biggest question we should all be asking. So what the heck is wrong with us? Why are we doing this to ourselves? And his response here is just, it's ignorance. It's our lack of awareness that is resulting in this emotional suffering. We don't realize that we're doing this. And it seems so normal because society teaches us this. Movies teach us this. Books teach us this. Our parents taught us this. Our grandparents taught us this. It's always like there because the ego mind is what's in society. I mean, it's out there. And so it takes you stopping and realizing this isn't working for me anymore. And a lot of times you have to go through a big emotional things to realize like, hey, this isn't working. You know, or maybe you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, this is true. You don't have to go through some big emotional thing. You're just like, yeah, this makes sense. Like this isn't working. My own mind is making me crazy. And so, you know, then you solve all the problems at once. It's like your mind and emotions tie all sorts of knots up in you about certain situations and what people have said in the past. And I got to go see them again and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, once you realize this, you're not even untying the knots. You're just burning the rope. You're going, that rope doesn't even need to exist. You with me? The rope doesn't even need to exist. You don't need to tie knots of emotional likes and dislikes, could be, should be, whatever's. It's pointless. Just burn the rope. Doesn't need to be there. Stay in unity. Just accept that, yeah, life comes in polar opposites. There's day, but there's also night. There's night, but there's also day. There's love, but there's also hate. There's hate, but there's also love. You appreciate the other when you have it, right? You need it, okay? So he then kind of brings up on page 177, like he brings up if you were to pray about this and you were to be asking for forgiveness and this perspective that he feels like Source or God would respond with, and essentially saying like, there's nothing to forgive. Love is loving. Like, I'm always here. I'm always in this unconditional loving space. There's nothing for me to forgive of you. And then he says, each choice, it's like, this is God talking to the person praying. Each choice bears a consequence. Eventually, you will learn to make choices that result in loving rather than suffering. He's saying, every time you choose for or against, every time you choose I like or I dislike, you are creating suffering. You are pulling yourself out of the loving essence of the whole into the world of polarity and ultimately duality where one has preference over the other. You're creating suffering. And what the response in prayer, right, is eventually you will learn to make choices that result in loving, not suffering, that result in going, I wonder why this is showing up. This is interesting what's here. I accept what's here. Then I'll figure out how to act with it. Okay? And so doing this, you come to realize your full potential and truly become one with me. Again, this is like Source writing. So really interesting, you know? And it says down here at the bottom of page 177, if you choose to judge, you receive the consequences or feedback of emotional suffering. And in extreme cases, this can include the pain and anguish of perceived separation from God. If you choose to forgive, the consequence is that the door to love opens wide and your whole life transforms. Eventually, guys, you're going to realize, like, it's better to stay here in this loving presence in unity than it is to move into the polarity and start to have preference and end up just split. It's just better to do the other, right? Eventually, you'll go through enough suffering that you'll realize this. Okay? That's what's going to happen. My teacher always says, like, forgiveness is an illusion. He even says all the time, like, there's nothing to forgive. Like, once you realize that your ego mind is the one creating all of this and is getting into all of these, like, inner conflicts and conversation, you will eventually realize, like, there's no point in all of this. This is an illusion. It gets me nowhere. And you just, like I said, you burn the rope. You just go, all these knots I created, I don't even have to undo the knot. I just have to burn the rope. Undoing the knot is kind of like forgiveness. So for what it's worth, just good analogy, okay? One of the principles here, they've given us 20 so far in this book, again, on spiritual psychology. Principle 21 is loving, healing, and evolving are all the same process. And I loved that. Loving, healing, and evolving are all the same process. It's going from this duality we all live in, coming back to the loving acceptance of I accept all just as it is. And when you can be in this loving presence, it is healing. It's also evolving. This is spiritual evolution. To be able to go, whatever shows up in my life, I'm not going to have preference about it. I'm going to see it for exactly as it is and then act. All right. Hey, so good to see you, Russ. what you resist will persist, right? So what is the point? You could have preference and maybe you're justified. Well, it shouldn't be this way. It could have been different. Didn't have to be this way. That person didn't have to make that comment. They didn't have to send that text message, blah, 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 blah. But they did. And it's like, if you're resisting it, you're staying in duality. It's going to persist as a problem in your own mind and emotional body, right? The moment you just go, interesting that they sent that message. Interesting that they said that thing. How do I want to respond? Right? Versus coming from a charged emotional way. You see what I'm saying? This is where it's healing. It's evolving. Spiritual evolution, of course. All right? The more you judge, I like this, I don't like that, this is when, again, you're getting pulled out of the loving presence. You're getting pulled out of unity. And the idea is I can see the polarity, but without having preference for it. I can understand that, there's times of abundance and there's times of lack, right? There's things that flow and they ebb and they flow, right? I see it all the time. I jump in the springs here all the time. Sometimes the water's very high, sometimes it's very low. Okay? The spring never has preference. It just is doing its thing, all right, as things move in and out. That's how life goes, all right? So this is how you can stop adding rocks to your bag. We talked about how we're all just carrying around like a backpack of rocks, all this emotional stuff. This is how you stop adding rocks to it, all right? And then the question becomes, well, how do I dissolve the rocks that are in there? And he talks about compassionate self-forgiveness. This is the mechanism by which you dissolve the rocks that you've erroneously placed in your own backpack out of ignorance. You simply weren't aware of what you were doing. And before we get into this exercise, which is just start thinking about a person or a situation that's triggered you recently, and we're going to walk through this exercise together. But he talks about how will you know if you're getting into judgment? Like, how will you know if you're pulling from unity into polarity, duality? He gave a couple things, and I want to hit on it. It's on page 180. He says, so how do you know if and when you're in judgment? There's an easy way to tell. Just simply apply the I am upset because test. If you're upset, meaning your peace has been disturbed about anything, you'll invariably find judgment somewhere in your thought process, and you will therefore find suffering in your emotions. All right? Ask yourself, am I making someone or something wrong? Or ask yourself, do I have hurt feelings about a rule or standard that has been violated? Interesting little things to just kind of catch yourself and see, because these are the learning moments. This is where the learning line of life, right, that he talks about. So let's do this together. Get a pen and paper. If you're driving, obviously that's a little more difficult, but come back to this later. And we're going to walk through, and I'll kind of flesh out the example that he gives so you can kind of see how this all goes. But it's a very powerful process. It's a 9-step process. So we're going to do it together. So I want you right now, just close your eyes, and I want you to think about a person or a situation that has been triggering you or did trigger you just over the weekend, or it's a constant kind of thing. Whatever comes to mind, don't overthink it. Just whatever popped in. We're going with that. All right? Now he says, it is important to center yourself and think about that loving essence within you, okay? Bringing awareness to your heart center. And then bring into mind this recent situation that triggered a negative emotional reaction. What happened? How did you feel? What did you do in response? Take a moment to write. I'm just going to kind of read out the example so you can get a gist. So this example is, my husband and I were having a disagreement. I got really upset because he raised his voice. I felt hurt and I reacted with anger. He raised his voice. I felt hurt. I reacted with anger. That's the situation that we're going to go through here. Pick your situation. You don't need to write it in the chat. You can write it down. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, I think everybody has their situation. Give your feelings a voice. Let the hurt or the angry part that is inside of you speak freely. Let it go. Write down what it's saying. Don't censor your expression. Don't be concerned about grammar or spelling. Just allow the I am upset because voice to speak freely. This is what it might sound like. I am giving the example, right, of the wife getting mad because the guy raised his voice. How can you talk to me like that after all I do for you? What is wrong with you? You're such a jerk. Why can't you understand how I feel? You never listen, and I'm getting sick and tired of all of your arrogance and insensitivity. You don't care about me at all. I'm so stupid for putting up with you. I feel so fed up. Does this sound like chatter anyone else has in their head? I certainly recognize, that voice, feeling so justified, just going at it. So go ahead and write it down. Sometimes we let these words escape our lips, don't we? Can't walk them back later. But now, write it down. This is just an exercise, again, in learning about compassionate self-forgiveness. So let's see where it takes us. So you're just writing out whatever you were fuming about, what you'd really like to say to the person, how you're really feeling, what they really triggered. All right? I'm going to have some tea. Now, move into a place of accepting yourself, your feelings, and the situation as a God-given opportunity that's present for your learning and growth. This is where, again, I told you, it rests on your shoulders. So they're not changing. Your perspective is about to change. So let me give you the example. All right, I know I'm really upset. I know that this disturbance is triggering I am upset because I accept that I'm in this situation, which is presenting me with the opportunity on the learning line, right? Spiritual growth on that learning line. And I recognize that I can use this for healing. I think you all can just mentally get there, okay? Step 4, take 100% responsibility for your emotional reaction as a way of reclaiming dominion inside of yourself and over the situation. You are not judging yourself here. This is not about self-judgment. I shouldn't have said that. Why'd I have that reaction? Blah, blah, blah. No, this is self-study. This is discovery of what is that in there? What did we trigger? What got triggered? This is where healing happens. This is where insight happens. We're not judging ourselves. This is normal. We all have stuff like this spit up. The question is, what's in there? Okay, so 100% responsibility. Not to self-judge, it's my fault, I shouldn't have done that. No, just to look inside yourself. So I know this emotional upset is occurring inside of me and is based upon beliefs and judgments for which I'm responsible. I also know this is an opportunity to identify the judgments and release them. It's my intention to heal whatever is disturbing my peace. Something got triggered. It was already living in there. The husband raised his voice and triggered something else. He just created the right weather, right, for the seed to grow. The seed was in there. It's not his fault. It's your thing. And it's not a your fault thing. It's like you wouldn't have known it was in there until it got triggered. So thank goodness it got triggered. Right? Thank goodness the right weather came through. She could see what was living in there. So now we want you to list any judgments against the other or yourself that you perceive are present. They're usually easily identifiable from step 2, your little rant, right? So the examples from this example. My husband is wrong. He's a jerk. He doesn't listen to me. He doesn't care about me. I'm stupid for staying with him. These were the judgments. These are the judgmental statements. Are you clear? So this is important. Step 5 is important. Look back at step 2. Look back at what are the judgments you're placing, right? These are the things that are taking you from unity into, the polarity and the duality, right? He's wrong. That is not a unity point of view. That is a wrong or right point of view. He's a jerk, right? He doesn't listen to me. He doesn't care about me. I'm stupid for staying with him. These are things that are pulling us out, pulling us out, pulling us out, pulling us out. Make sense? And so then step 6, do you have enough time? Let me pause. I'll have more tea. So step 6 is about engaging in what they call compassionate self-forgiveness for your judgments. And there's a very specific way they write this. I forgive myself for judging, and then insert the thing you just judged. I forgive myself for judging my husband is wrong. I forgive myself for judging him as a jerk. I forgive myself for judging him as not listening. I forgive myself for judging him as an uncaring person. I forgive myself for judging myself as stupid for staying in this marriage. I forgive myself for these judgments. All right, when you're finished, move into your authentic self, a place of self-acceptance and self-compassion as best you know how, and ask yourself what the truth is about the situation. All right, so now you've been able to say, I forgive myself for this and this and this. Saying it is one thing, and then we need to actually move into that space, okay? So we're writing it down, we're saying it. Now, if you move into this space, the truth is He's entitled to his opinion. Really, he's a good man, and I'm grateful to be with him. I know he's doing his best to hear me, and sometimes we just don't see eye to eye. In my heart, I know he really cares, and I'm wise enough to be releasing these judgments. Beneath it all, I love him very much. It is very common, he makes a note here, that while doing this work, if you're doing quality work, memories of older things will start to come up when maybe a parent did this to you, or a best friend, or some other dynamic from your past. It's an indicator, it's a positive indicator that we're getting to the more deeper ingrained things. I think of them as little seeds that are down there. He talks them about as judgments. I don't know that I care for his language, but anyway, I think we're all getting the point. As an example, I realized that I've been in the exact situation in a previous relationship, right? This is the lens of the past. What's inside of me that draws this sort of thing to me? I see. I don't think I'm worthy of a truly loving relationship. So this is where the deeper insight comes of like, man, so in my past relationship, they always raise their voice at me. Why do I keep getting into relationships where people are raising their voice at me? Why? Because I don't feel that I'm worthy to be loved. Oh, interesting. That has nothing to do with people out there. That's your own self-concept. That's your own seed. This is why this is like super powerful, insightful work. I don't think I'm worthy of a truly loving relationship. I forgive myself for judging myself as unworthy of a loving relationship. And then you just, again, it's not, don't feel bad. There's no self-judgment. It's, oh, that's the thing that's in there. Let me release that. I forgive myself. Let me release it. Okay. The truth is that I'm a beautiful, caring person who has a lot of love to share. I am worthy of a heartfelt, loving relationship. You got to find these things. They're in there. They're in there. And you want to find them. All right, step 8. He says, once the negative energy has lifted and you're back in balance, look for creative solutions to the triggering situation for the highest good for all. They'll usually be right there in front of you. Effective outer action follows successful inner action, right? This is once I get out of the duality, I come back into acceptance from the whole. Once I accept, I can act. Okay? When I'm in resistance or judgment, I'm coming from a charged emotional place and it just feels really combative. But when I'm in an accepting place and I see it for a bigger thing of what it really is, now I can act from a not emotionally charged place. So in this example, I see that when my husband approaches me with irritation and anger, I can gently let him know that I would appreciate his talking to me in a kinder way. What can you do? You can say, hey, not from judgment, just like, hey, can you watch your tone? It's not feeling great. And just state what needs stating without the emotional charge. Okay. In fact, I'm going to write him a loving letter now and share this with him. And I know it's a good thing for me to let him know more often how much I love and appreciate him and all that he does for me. I think I'll start my letter with that message. Okay. And then step 9, acknowledge and appreciate yourself for your willingness to learn how to work with your disturbance as an opportunity for growth and healing. This comes through as, I appreciate myself for my willingness to use this opportunity to move into my own acceptance and compassion for both my husband and me. And on a very deep level, I'm grateful to Spirit for presenting me with an opportunity for learning how to heal the unresolved issues residing in my consciousness. The trigger is the teacher. If you stop and you let it be that, you will get so much insight into yourself, so much self-awareness. That self-awareness will then lead to being able to heal, release, evolve. It leads to self-confidence. It's amazing. Yes, the book, for those of you that don't know, is called Loyalty to Your Soul. All right. The Heart of Spiritual Psychology. It's by Ronald Hulnick and Mary Hulnick. It's been interesting. It's on the same sort of line as what I typically teach and read. AI recommended this to us for our book club based on the other books we've read. So he does say, if you guys have thoughts on this, I'm sorry, I've not been paying attention to the chat over here. If you have any thoughts on this, no thanks, no more suffering. Yes, exactly, Tina. Please share. But this is powerful. It's powerful when you can disidentify, not judge yourself, and just, again, look at this as self-study and go, okay, why is this happening? All right. And then you see, oh, okay, this trigger is trying to teach me something. There's something in that's not healed that I need to look at. And he says that if you go through this process and nothing shifted, he gives some suggestions, some tricks, which are to maybe you need to open your heart, because if your heart's not open, you're doing this from your mind. So his thoughts were, think of a child that you love. This usually allows your heart to open. Think of a person that you love the most. It allows your heart to open. Think of someone who represents the highest level of loving spiritual awareness, maybe a spiritual teacher of yours. Your heart will open. Place your right hand on your physical heart and allow your heart to open. So these are all tricks that he gives, because when you're in an open heart space, you can view all of this from a very different level. All right. The rest of the chapter was just kind of examples of people that have done these sorts of things and the healing that they had. And then obviously the sentence starters at the end of the chapter. So that wraps up book club for today, guys. And we just have one chapter left, chapter 10, and I think we just bite off the whole thing. So I think we'll read chapter 10 this week, and we'll be finished this book, which is wild. So if you've got any comments that you want to share in the Telegram chat, you can reply to today's post when I post it in there. This is always up on YouTube. It will live there forever on YouTube in a playlist for the Loyalty to Your Soul book club. And if you feel like this is something you want to reference back to, just, come back anytime. All right. It's good to see you. Apologies that I couldn't get on last week, but thanks for your grace. And I will talk to you on Monday. All right. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Ah, perfect, Russ. I'm glad you tuned in for today. Bye, guys.